Welcome to our webinar series, Winning in 2021. I'll be your host today, facilitating this particular session. And just by way of welcome, want to make sure first that we're recording, just to make sure. Marche will be moderating in the background. She'll have some poll questions and some opportunities to answer some questions. And also, if you have any questions you want to put into the chat, feel free to do that. So welcome to Winning in 2021. This will be about a 6-month series of different webinars that iSeek will host and sponsor, that will give some enlightenment, some insight into the different journeys that businesses and organizations are going through. We'll look at business health, we'll look at business performance, but today we're going to look at strategic planning, which we think all organizations should kick off a plan to develop their strategy. And if you joined a little late, I see some other folks joining. Again, my name is Mike Dale, and I'll be facilitating this session. So just by way of introduction first, for iSeek Solutions, who is hosting and sponsoring this 6-week webinar series. iSeek is a professional management consulting firm. If you have not been aware of the company, iSeek has experts who have deep and wide experience in ensuring that their customers and partners have the ability to connect strategic goals and objectives with some core areas of the business. And those core areas of the business have to do with your people, which your people need to be in the right position with the right role, having the right responsibilities. And number 2, looking at your processes to make sure that the gaps are closed, processes are not disjointed, ensuring that there's continuity. So iSeek works with customers on engineering processes, transactions, or re-engineering those processes in the front office and the back office. And then lastly, very important, is technology enablement. iSeek provides not only assessments for companies who need to understand their technology footing, but also staff augmentation, where there are technology expertise, a lack of technology expertise, and iSeek is in a good position to provide augmentation for those roles. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the session. Today, again, we're going to talk about developing your strategic plan. And let me just tell a quick story. You know, when working with clients, developing their strategic plan, when we do our first interview, in my experience, the first question is, do you have a strategic plan? And the answer normally 9 times out of 10 is yes. So my second question is, well, where is it? Can I have a copy? And that's when the conversation goes south, because oftentimes the customer or the client has put together a strategic plan, but it's old, it's outdated, it's dusty, and if there is one, it's just a checklist. And so what we want to do is make sure that you know, we introduce what a strategic plan is, what the core components of a strategic plan is, how you can simplify it, and how we can perhaps offer some tools to make that process more beneficial for you. So just real quick, the agenda today, we've already introduced iSeek Solutions to you. We'll talk about 5 components that are key to your strategic planning effort. We'll look at 5 tips for developing your plan. We'll talk to you about simplifying your plan, making sure it's not complex, And then we'll talk about something we call the workshop approach. And iSeek offers a very robust tool or resource that we'll sort of get into at the end of the presentation, the webinar here. Of course, hopefully we'll have some time for Q&A, so we'll get going here. All right, so let's talk about the 5 key components. So there's a plethora of components involved in strategic planning. If you go out to any best practices platform around strategy, you'll find, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 key components. iSeek has narrowed it down to these 5. The vision first is key. It is an aspirational statement that your team, who is representing your company, should be able to develop. Now, an aspirational statement, the vision, is going to be perhaps something maybe unattainable. For instance, let me give you an example. McDonald's would like to have the best cheeseburger in the universe, right? So yeah, that's a good vision, but it's probably unattainable, right? It'll be hard to measure whether McDonald's can have the best cheeseburger in the universe. But if we look at the vision, now we start peeling down or removing sort of the aspirational layer and getting down to what we actually need to achieve, sort of like a breakdown. So the mission is actually going to be where you will establish what it is that you want to achieve. So thought leader Stephanie Ray says that the vision statement is intended to be a guide to help the organization make decisions and align to its philosophy and its declared set of goals. Well, the mission is going to be more declarative. So let's look at the McDonald's example. McDonald's, if they were going to, pare down from the vision statement and get down to the mission, their mission, which is attainable, would be, we'd like to have the best cheeseburger in North America. So that's attainable, that's measurable. They can sort of now start looking at, okay, in North America, let's start describing what our goals should be. So the goals should be measurable deliverables. So most companies have 5 and 6 or 7 sort of chief goals that they want to achieve year over year. And what we'll see is most organizations have 3 to 5 year strategic plans. Some organizations may have 1. However, it may be sort of difficult to achieve some sort of year over year growth and be able to measure that growth, or in terms of cost reduction, measuring a reduction, if you're only measuring for 1 year. So that's why we'll see, most organizations, especially larger organizations, building a plan, a strategic plan that incorporates more so a 3 or 5 year projection. And so when we talk about goals, those goals should be SMART goals. And if you're not familiar with SMART, SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. Once you have the goals in place, now you start to peel away at what those tactical plans should be that align to those goals. So for instance, if you have 5 goals, one goal may be that we want to increase revenue by 15% year over year, starting in year 1. So now to establish an action plan or a tactical objective, you want to look at what sort of propels that increase in revenue. And so we're looking at product, we're looking at the services, we're looking at productions, we're looking at operations. And guess what? Each of those areas, those divisions, those departments, they need tactical plans. Those plans should be SMART as well. And so the difference between goals and action plans is that the action plans are more closer, I would say, to the executable, the lines of business or the parts of your business that actually execute the work and perform on the transactions. And then lastly, this is something that we don't see often, but something that we promote, which is a review of your plan. And it's called plan maintenance. So year over year, or even more periodically with a cadence, there should be a review of your strategic plan. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. So 5 tips for developing your strategic plan. Number 1, pick a qualified team that represents your business, meaning that many companies, organizations may utilize their leadership only to collaborate on what the strategic goals and the strategic plan should look like. What we promote is that this should be more of a collaborative effort where you're getting more buy-in. So you want to create a plan that's getting more buy-in throughout the organization. And how can you do that? It's by going down 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels down into management or leadership, or into the actual lines of business, and getting that input as part of that qualified team setting up strategic plan. You want to focus on priorities. That's number 3. When we say focus on priorities, now we sort of get into having some support, having some help. And one of the things that iSeek talks about is to have a qualified facilitator, one who's able to use certain inputs, devise certain tools and mechanisms, use certain techniques that help you prioritize, help you to make sure that things stay aligned during the process of developing your plan. Number 4, taking action based on evidence, based on data. So if there's in fact decisions to be made during the strategic planning process, those decisions shouldn't be subjective. They shouldn't be opinionative. They should be backed with accurate and timely data. And then lastly, always the rules of the road. This is, perhaps number 5 should be number 2, right? There should be a rules of the road, such as, for instance, one thing we talk about a lot is using the parking lot concept. The parking lot concept means that we may have 5, priorities to talk about in this particular session, right? But we're going to agree that only 3 out of those 5 need to be part of this initial conversation, because we have a set amount of time. The other 2 are going to go in the parking lot. Not that the parking lot is not going to be a place where we won't prioritize those items, but they just won't be prioritized today. But we're going to get back to them, because we can't go home unless we go through the parking lot. So that's a good concept that an experienced facilitator will take you through. All right, so a simplified approach for planning your strategic plan, developing that plan. So, we talk about having representation all through the company as part of this qualified team of strategic plan developers. They must be collaborative in nature. We want a collaborative team. We want, sort of, when you talk about the rules of the road, we should have collaboration and buy-in from everyone there. It should be an open conversation. We talk about the no judgment zone in terms of idea sharing, bringing up challenges and pain points. This should be an open and frank conversation going through the sessions of developing your plan. Of course, thoughtful and prescriptive, meaning that we don't talk on the surface when we talk about developing your goals and developing your objectives. They should be prescriptive. And we talked about the SMART acronym, how it should be specific, should be time bound. So the conversations in terms of talking about strategic planning are never surface. They're always prescriptive conversations. And again, a experienced facilitator sort of helps to peel back those layers with the team to help ask the questions to make sure that, you know, sort of no comment or no question is going undone, in that we address sort of the common threads, not only common threads, but the uncommon threads. And so that we get to the right decisions and that we make the right, you know, decisions on the goals and how they align with the objectives and the tactical plans. And then, of course, focus then. And we'll talk about our approach, iSeek's approach, which is the workshop approach. And that helps with all 5 of these, but it really helps with the focus mechanism. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so question, what does your workshop look like? So real quick, I'll give a minute or two if you want to ping in the chat just to say what your workshop looks like. And let me tell you what I mean by workshop. It's a vague term, right? So I have a workshop that has all of my lawnmower tools, my lawn care tools. You may not take care of a lawn. You may be an artist, so you may have an art workshop. You may have a sewing room. So the question here is where you kind of do your work. What does that look like? Is it messy? Is there dirt? I'll say, yeah, dirt. Is it easy for you to get to your tools? Just ping in the chat and let me know. And Marche, I don't know if I can't see whether we're getting any answers or not. I'm looking, I don't see any chatting going on. Oh, yep, I do. Sorry. Cluttered and disorganized, someone says. Okay, we'll go with that. I think that's a common thread, right? Cluttered and unorganized. So this is what a workshop ideally should look like. And so when we look at a workshop like this, we see where it's organized, it's discluttered, it's not cluttered, items are clear, and even perhaps clearly marked. And so your approach to obtaining any of these items is quite easy. You can get to them, there's good space in between, they're all in sort of in grouping or categorization there. Let's take a look at this workshop. So if we look at this workshop, yeah, I used the word dirty earlier. Yeah, this is a sort of a dirty, dusty workshop. Looks like, you know, once upon a time, there was some categorization, some organization, but slowly through the process, it got disorganized and disjointed. Even the lighting is kind of bad here. It looks like a bulb went out. So not too good of a workshop look there. So the workshop approach. So one of the things we talk about at iSeek is that, you know, the place where you work, the place where you conduct business, in terms of your strategic plan, you know, when you're developing your strategic plan, you should have tools, you should have resources that enable you to do the best job that you can do. It should be an organized process. It should be one that saves time and saves money and saves effort. And again, this is when we start talking about having an experienced facilitator who is part of your strategic planning development exercise or part of your sessions to help you prioritize. Ensure that there's an accounting for input, also that there is proper consensus. And so that's what an expert facilitator can do in this workshop approach. So let's talk about the workshop approach. Workshop approach typically involves multiple sessions. It's an effort, again, facilitated by an experienced facilitator and attended by that qualified team that we talked about. It normally spans several days. Now, days they don't have to be consecutive. They can be spread out across several weeks or a couple of months, pending sort of the timing constraints and restrictions that the team may have. But each day, participants will go through, deep thinking processes and processes that elicit thinking and decision making. And, having sort of an outside consultant or an expert facilitator who has the ability to bring the right approach to ensure that the time is valuable, that the money and the effort is well spent, a facilitator can actually help in that approach. And then lastly, again, as we said, the approach forces the team to draw consensus on shared goals and objectives, and even sort of thread the needle on those goals and those objectives that may not be shared, because that's something that teams will deal with, on how they sort of bring the goals into one so that there's consensus. So just for an example, strategic mapping is one of the exercises that a facilitator will take the team through in mapping those all-important processes in your strategic plan. So if you notice here, this 4-leg balanced scorecard is a standard for best practices for measuring strategic process at organizations, large and small. And so this is one of the tools we use. We use this balanced scorecard to help you see what the alignment should be. We put your financial, your customer, your processes, your organization, or people strategy here. And this is a very simplified look, but the look at your organization may be 10 times the complexity here, of course. But what we're trying to achieve is just mapping. We're trying to show the mapping on how your people connect to profitability, how your processes connect to profitability, and how customers, right, your end customers in terms of wait time, product loyalty, retention, cross-sell, upsell, all of those things, how they connect back to the financial. So that's just one of the mapping exercises. As during a workshop approach, there'll be many exercises and mapping events that you'll go to in order to align your objectives and your plans. So speaking of the workshop approach, iSeek has a strategic planning development workshop resource. Again, it is a collaborative process for leading organizations through the effective strategic planning resource. And iSeek bases the workshop on those 5 key elements or components we talked about earlier. And those are joined along with these 5 sort of phases, if you will, that the workshop will proceed through. Sort of the 5 deliverables, if you will. So number 1, in an iSeek workshop for developing your strategic plan, iSeek will, assess your current state, give you a current state view and also a target state view. That's what happens on the first day or so, just to sort of set the temperature of where we are, and then, high level cloud view where we want to go. The next day or so, we want to start looking at those goals and objectives that, you may already have, and start to draw the conclusions and the mapping between the mission, the vision, and those goals, like we talked about earlier. Around going into the second and third day, there'll be mapping exercises, making sure that the strategy is actually mapping between what we looked at earlier there in the last slide, your customer, your people, and your processes internally. Around the third or fourth day, we'll start initiating on those action plans we talked about. So if we have goals, now we can start breaking those down into actionable plans that are, smart, as much as we can get them at that high level. And then lastly, we want to advise and put together a maintenance plan for effective reviews. So here's a case study. This is a client of iSeek, City of Birmingham. They, a couple of years ago with the new administration for Mayor Woodfin, joined him and his team in putting together their strategic plan, their 3-year strategic plan. Of course, they had their goals in place, but the challenge for iSeek in coming in as an external consultant was to come in and make sure that there was alignment between the vision, mission, and then the goals, and that there was proper breakdown, that the goals had was specific, measurable, they were time bound, and ensuring that those time bound goals could be distributed across the different assigned teams that needed to execute on them. And so that was the challenge that iSeek participated in this case with City of Birmingham as a client over about a couple of months process of several sessions. And so just wanted to show that as just a good example of iSeek in action, participating with a client who had a successful implementation of strategic planning. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask Marche, if you would, to go ahead and we have a poll of questions that we'd like to put out for you that will just sort of inquire what you've learned today and whether you've learned enough to answer these 3 questions on strategic planning. And while you're answering those questions, if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat, and we have a minute or so to answer. I love to answer any questions that you may have about strategic planning. And if we can't get answers to you in this session, we'll be sure to get you an answer out after the session. And this session was recorded, so it will be available on iSeek's YouTube channel and other media outlets that iSeek provides. And so with that, I don't see any questions, Marche. I don't know if I'm maybe looking in the wrong place. Let's see. Okay, no questions. No questions. Okay, well, it's 1 o'clock, and thank you so much for joining this iteration of Winning in 2021. Look for not only a live session coming up real soon in the coming month, but you'll also see some pre-recorded sessions that we will be distributing as part of this webinar series. And again, thank you so much for attending. We look forward to talking to you and seeing you again in the next session. Have a great day. Thank you.